It's now time for The Journal, WBGU-TV's award-winning public affairs program, with your host, Steve Kendall. This is where your community matters. Local people, local issues.
Hello and welcome to Journal. I'm Steve Kendall. Economic development is one of those topics that's always popular for us, and there's always a lot going on. And we're going to be talking about economic development, workforce development, and the impact of tax incentives with some of the folks responsible for those efforts in Henry County. We're joined right now by Denise Dahl, Executive Director of the Henry County Improvement Corporation, and Henry County Commissioner Glenn Miller. So thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
Let's talk about what's going on in Henry County over the last year. We've had you on once a year, but let's talk about what's happened since the last time we've talked.
Sure. Thanks for having us on.
Sure.
We always value the opportunity to get out what's going on in Henry County. It was a really big year for us. I think we'd like to focus a little bit about not only what we've done in the last year, but the idea of economic intelligence, that it's not just one big project, that it's a lot of things not only that have been done, but planning for the future. So we've got a lot going on, and it ranges just widely from community development efforts in Deschler. You know, they painted a couple murals that are absolutely beautiful on the side of buildings.
Street improvements, took advantage of the CDBG downtown grant, and the grant was $280,000, so business owners had to match that. And the community looks wonderful. And it has been a great morale builder in that community. They suffered losing two substantial companies some years ago, and this has really made a big difference.
Sure. Well, and of course, you know, a lot of small towns in Northwest Ohio, like most counties, Wood County really made up of just a couple of cities and then everything else, small towns. And those are really kind of the grassroots where you have to build. As you said, small projects lead to a bigger kind of overall effect. So
it's very true. That's a very valid point. And I feel smaller towns like Deschler, it is very bootstrapping up. They're already focusing on housing. When the company's there, Graham & X is looking at expanding again. So you have a lot of things. Another small town out there would be Holgate.
Absolutely.
Right.
They had a 20,000, about 18 to 20,000 square foot vacant building for several years, and it's actually been filled and is currently in the process of being doubled, a little more than doubled in size. So that type of project is substantial to the sustainability of a smaller town. It's very impactful.
It's critical, not only as far as jobs, but also infrastructure-wise, using the water and so forth, gains the village additional revenue. But again, a lot of economic development is not only creating the jobs, but it's also a morale booster.
Sure.
You know, people get excited when they see things happening. And things have been happening all over Henry County.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they feel good about that, then want to do something on there, do more for whatever their particular business happens to be.
True. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Especially in a county such as Henry, where you have, just like Wood County, like Williams County, Fulton County, you have a major city and then you have a lot of smaller villages, right? So I think it's really important using economic intelligence to engage everybody. It always reminds me of, I worked for Mayor Finkbeiner when Jeep was going to leave. That you never want to have all your eggs in one basket, right?
Yeah.
But having said that, we did have some big wins in Napoleon. Last time we were on, we talked about our spec building.
Right.
And we filled the spec building before it was done, and it actually doubled to 200,000 square feet. So, that we have a saying, Mayor Brubaker and Handler has a saying, if one town or city succeeds, we all succeed, right? Because we live in a global economy where we really do need to team up to make things happen.
Well, and because what works benefits the whole county, the whole region if you're successful, because then people want to come here, want to bring their business here, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Exactly. And this particular building, this is the third spec building in the city of Napoleon. And this is, I think, the first of the three that before the building was built, it had a tenant, let alone before the deal's completed, The buildings double in size, and just as the development deal is finishing up, they add some more square footage to it. So it's it was really interesting to see come together.
Right.
But it shows you how having the right people at the right place at the right time,
Absolutely.
along with the right vision, what can happen.
Right.
And
Yeah, well, and that was going to be my question. When you look to construct a spec building, obviously there has to be some research and some sort of vision of what that building, who's going to want to move there, how do you spec that building out so that we'll attract the right kind of tenants?
Exactly. I feel
Yeah.
like that kind of leads back into having economic intelligence and what fits your community, what's sustainable, what your workforce supports,
Right.
what your school system supports. I think it's very important because, you know, economic development has become a very different animal since 20 years ago when I started. I feel like economic intelligence has taken a little bit of a step out and win at any cost has stepped in. And that concerns me a lot because you can have a very big win at the cost of your community. So I think when you're planning a spec building or going after any new business, you have to remember, one, you better be building and helping your current existing businesses, as well as making sure your schools or your communities won't take a hit.
Right.
Yep, exactly. And we have, Henry County has been there. You know, where we'll take about anything at any cost. And fortunately, a couple of those deals didn't happen, and there was a great cost to that.
Yeah.
But hindsight looks at probably that was the way it really needed to go because it was not going to be a real good fit.
Right.
And this particular spec building project, the tenant, a very good fit within within the county. It's more manufacturing, and that's where we seem to have focused in on, and it's just it was a dream come true. It was so fun to watch happen.
Now, you mentioned briefly, infrastructure and water, which of course is an ongoing regional discussion. What's the status right now with water in Henry County? Because we've heard about the aquifer out in Williams County, the Michindo, Ohio, whatever thing. What's how are we set for water in Henry County? I live right along the Henry-Lucas County line north of the river. What's the feel right now for that? How is Henry County interacting with that big discussion that's going on?
Somehow, many times Henry County gets left out of the discussion. I've been in a number. The County Commissioners Association has their own water quality task force. Pete Gerken, Lucas County Commissioner, is a co-chair.
Right.
They seem to talk around us, and we're right in the middle of it.
Right.
But as far as water for Henry County, as far as water for development, there's water.
Okay.
The Michindo, as far as the Henry County Water Sewer District is looking into that.
Right.
They're looking at options. It may not be the best option. I really don't think it is. However, when you look at the cost of processing water, groundwater is much better quality, much less expensive to process than water out of the river.
Right.
You know, you have a good water source, huge quantity.
Right.
The quality is what's
Sure. Yeah. And it's all, we all know it's all about treatment, both the water you're taking in and the water and what you're putting back out right now as well. We've got just a moment here. Is there one thing, I mean, if we look a little bit down the road, is there something just over the horizon now that people should be aware of for Henry County in terms of economic development? Anything brewing under the surface right now?
That's a great question. I think one of the things we really need to focus on into the future is along the lines of infrastructure, and it's broadband, it's IT related, because the more rural you go out, the more challenging those resources are. So I think for planning purposes, if we want to continue to grow, I believe we need to
It's going to be
tap into
with
that.
broadband, especially for our ag. You know,
Right.
Besides, we have for the county a smaller, I would say, industrial base, manufacturing base, but a huge ag.
Agricultural base, sure.
And it requires bandwidth. You know, bandwidth to be able to communicate with your combine, your tractor out in the field, watching how the hired help, what rate seeds going on in the ground and different things.
Yeah.
And
It's a
going
whole
to be
different
critical.
technology than it was 10,
It is.
5,
It
10,
is.
let
It is.
alone 20 years ago.
Yeah, it is so cool.
Yeah, it is. It is amazing when you get in a combine that basically goes up and down the field by itself and shows you what the yields are, and
Yes.
parts of the combine are
Yes.
speeding up, slowing down depending on the flow through and everything. So you're right, all of that comes into play. I know we're going to talk about workforce development as we move along through here, but I want to thank you guys for being on in this segment. Commissioner Glenn Miller, Executive Director Denise Dahl, thank you so much. And we'll be talking a little bit more about economic development and workforce development in Henry County in just a moment here on The Journal. Thanks for staying with us here on The Journal. We're talking about economic development in Henry County. And in this particular segment, we're joined by Jennifer Arps, also part of the Community Improvement Corporation. One of the things we've talked about is matching businesses and people coming into the county with the workforce. And workforce development is an ongoing discussion that every entity, every jurisdiction has. So what are some of the things, the challenges and the opportunities that we have right now for workforce development in Henry County?
Sure, that's a great question. I think the challenge is really just a basic numbers game right now. A lot of states are losing population.
Right.
A lot of counties, especially rural counties, are losing population. So it's not only finding a way to keep the people we have, but to attract more people in.
Right.
So and that triggers. It's not just a hey, come live here. It triggers housing. It triggers all kinds of things. So you hear a lot of people like, what's the silver bullet to workforce development? And there really isn't one solution. I think a lot of it lays in our schools, a lot of it lays in engaging, and partnering up to try and find the best solution. But
I think it starts younger and younger than you think. You
okay.
want to grab someone in their 20s, but you have to grab them years prior to get that engagement and interest, I think. So that's one of the things that we really try to do, is grab them younger.
Yeah, because one of the things that we hear about, and I don't know if it's as drastic as it used to be, was the fact that people would graduate from high school, college, associate's degrees, whatever it was, technical degrees, and then would leave Ohio. Is that still a challenge for us right now, to keep our own homegrown people that have been educated here, develop their skills here, and then go somewhere else? What's the status right now?
I think it's a split, just from what I've seen in some of our events that we do, talking with the students. We've gone out to 4 county, and some of them, I like to ask them what their plans are. Do you want to stay around Henry County, move away? And a lot of them wish to stay. So that's, always something good to hear.
Sure.
We've done it, but.
yeah, and I do. I think it really varies. I think county to county, and it's kind of like a company. It's kind of the culture of your county.
Right.
Do you feel engaged? Do you feel like that's your home? And that kind of circles back to economic intelligence too. Are you creating an environment that people want to stay in and feel that that is their home? I know Columbus, even in Ohio, Columbus isn't losing, they're gaining, but then you go to a different sector of Ohio and you see their, Cleveland's had challenges. So it's really, really demographically and geographically a challenge.
Right. Well, and quality of life seems to be, especially for this generation that's coming out of high school, they view things a little differently than maybe our generation did, other generations did. So we were discussing in that first segment the redevelopment of small towns and that sort of thing. Those seem to be the kind of things they want to be able to live near where they work and have all those different amenities that are quality of life. And so that's a part of keeping them here as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think another really big piece of it is you can live in a community and not really know what's in your community.
Sure.
And it's educating people, and we've tried to do that with partnering with different schools and doing bus tours. And one of the best stories I ever heard, we were out on a site visit meeting with the plant manager person, and they said they got that job because they were tired of commuting, and they drove around one day and didn't even realize that business was there, and they had lived there over 20 years. So and we do try to keep them engaged through different activities. If you want to talk about the bus tour.
We do several. This will be our 3rd year going into it. In the fall, we like to do a bus tour. We gather guidance counselors and math, science teachers from the high schools, and Napoleon area school is gracious enough to provide a bus and a driver, and we generally stop at about 3 or 4 different locations. We've taken them through Campbell's Soup, which was an amazing tour, because a lot of people don't really realize Campbell's Soup's largest facility is right here
Yeah,
in
the
the
scope
point.
of that facility is amazing. I mean,
It really is.
Yeah.
But you're right. You go by that. If you go by that every day, you sort of just take it for granted it's there.
Exactly.
And
You
you
do.
don't think about what happens there and
Yeah.
how large a facility is and how important it is to Campbell's.
Absolutely. And the tours are beneficial because these guidance counselors and teachers know the students one-on-one, and they have an idea of who's going to be going to that college, who may be staying behind. So when they go through these tours and they learn about the skills that are needed, the benefits that they'll receive, and training opportunities, and even some tuition reimbursement for those that are thinking about going to a 2-year school or even 4-year, that can do both at the same time, work and get that tuition reimbursement back. So.
Yeah. Now, you've got large employers like that, but too, a lot of this is built on smaller employers as well, and that's a part of
Absolutely.
providing workforce and people for that also, the variety of things that are out there.
Absolutely. And again, it kind of goes back to staying engaged with your entire community. You know, it's always the shiny trinket that gets the, the new big whatever.
Right.
But the reality is, most of our communities are built up on small businesses,
Sure.
and they're the stable component regardless of where the economy is.
Right.
So it's going back and trying to educate through our partners at this school, and giving people the opportunity, young adults and even younger children, the opportunity to really understand what it is they're drawn to, whether it's through
Right.
STEM exercises or going out and seeing these types of things.
And I think one of the events that we do that really help with that is Manufacturing Day, which is a nationwide celebration of modern manufacturing. It happens the first Friday in October. So this year it will be October 4th. And we hold it out at Northwest State Community College in partnership with not only Henry County ED offices, but Fulton County, Defiance County, and Williams County. And that's along with Northwest State Community College and their custom training solutions. And last year we had, I think, close to 400 students, generally juniors and seniors from those high schools within those counties, and then also over 40 companies attend. And that allows the students to interact with them, see what these companies make and produce, and again, what skills are needed.
Right. Yeah.
So it really helps out.
Well, and the environment in manufacturing in terms of the physical plants themselves and the type of equipment is totally different too. It used to be manufacturing was
Yeah.
kind of this labor-intensive, in some cases
Dark,
not,
right.
grungy.
not the cleanest facility to
Yeah.
be in.
Exactly.
But now the products have to be in almost like a clean environment. It's very very developed technology-wise, so it's not this onerous sort of like, oh, we got to go in and work in the noise and the dirt and all of that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Which is what a lot of people haven't quite figured out
Yeah.
yet. So
They
yeah.
like to say it's not your grandfather's manufacturing
Right.
anymore, and it is. You go in there and it's clean, it's bright, it's.
Yeah.
A lot of times, everyone has their own personalized fan.
Yeah.
It's a lot different than what you think it is.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and companies have figured out too, as you've talked about, that employees that are in feel good about what they're doing, the environment they're
Yes.
doing it in, are more productive.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
anything you can do to make them more productive and make them feel comfortable and enjoy what they're doing
Absolutely.
is a big incentive to keeping them here, because the difficult thing is it's much easier to keep an employee than to constantly be training new
Right.
people
Yes,
to come in.
absolutely.
So there's that. So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. When we look at workforce development, when you guys look at that, is there one key to that, one thing that you really focus on, or what would be the matrix that says, how do we match up
Sure.
when a company comes in and says, well, here's what we'd like to do? What are they asking you for? I know it depends on the company, but
Sure.
are there several things they ask for every time?
I think the one consistent is, can your area provide the training that this
Okay.
company is going to need?
Right.
And that goes back to our ability to have a good relationship and partner with folks like County Career Center, Northwest State Community College, those kinds of things, because it is, everyone talks about incentives, but the reality is a company is going to go where they're going to go basically and primarily if there's a workforce. You could throw $9 billion at them, but if you don't have a workforce, they're not coming.
It doesn't.
right?
Yeah, it's not going to be beneficial for
That's
them
exactly
or for
it.
anybody else.
That's
So,
exactly
yeah,
it.
okay.
So it's making sure that you have that workforce infrastructure in place, and you can say, oh, absolutely. We've got these people coming out of here. We've got these
Ready to
people who can
go.
train here. We can train on site. We partner with Ohio Means Jobs Henry County. They can provide funding for training and help partner and make things easy. But it
Transportation
really is.
even.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for being on in this segment. Jennifer
you.
Arps, Denise
Thank you.
Dahl, Community Improvement Corporation, Henry County. We'll talk a little bit more about economic development in Henry County in just a moment here on The Journal. Thanks for staying with us here on The Journal. We're talking about economic development in Henry County, and we're joined in this segment again by Commissioner Glenn Miller and also the Superintendent of County Career Center, Tim Meister. Let's talk a little about Fore County a little bit and your role in all of this, because we've talked about training, workforce development, but Fore County has a broad reach in a lot of different areas.
It does. Our school district is actually 1,700 square miles, which is about 200 more than the state of Rhode Island. So it's a massive area.
That is, yeah.
And Denise last segment talked about workforce development, and that is the primary goal of all the career centers in Ohio is workforce development. What she said that has to resonate is everybody looks for a magic bullet to fix workforce development, and a lot of times they will look to the schools. They certainly feel like we have a very prominent role in that, but we certainly aren't the single source of the solution. So we need to form business partnerships. We need to work with our area businesses, existing and new ones coming in. Certainly we can provide workforce development. Currently we're about 25–26% of all workforce development, or excuse me, of all the workforce in the Fore County area are Fore County graduates, so we do understand our role in it. But again, as Denise said, we're not the single magic bullet. But we certainly feel like we have a prominent role in that.
Yeah. Now over time, if you look at when Fore County, how that's evolved in terms of what you offer in terms of careers and career paths and that sort of thing, how has that changed over the last number of years?
Well, our programs have certainly evolved with our area needs. So each program, we have 30 of them at Fore County, have their own advisory board. And the advisory board will then, I don't want to say they dictate, but they offer us advice on what types of things we need to be doing in each program to provide the needs they currently have. So at a career center, we're going to look different each and every year based on the needs of what our advisory boards recommend to us, but at the same time we still have to follow the curriculum set forth by the Department of Education.
Sure. And of course that's probably a bit of a challenge too, because things change, as you just said, every year is a new year. From a financial point of view, how do you keep up with all that? Because that means investing in new facilities, new equipment, new training, new instructors, that sort of thing. So how does that work? How do you make that work?
It's like anything. We're almost like a business. We have to watch our budget. We have to make sure we set aside so many funds 5 and 6 years out, and that's very difficult because, like you said, a lot of things have changed. Now, this is my 7th year at Fore County. In my first year, we never heard of robotics. All of a sudden now we have a massive lab that includes 2 robotic trainers, all kinds of small robotics. They've integrated with our CAD, with our smart lab, with our carbon computer electrical. I mean, all those labs have kind of crossed paths. So it's a challenge that we face every day, but again, we just try to be good stewards of the taxpayer's dollar.
Yeah. Now, Commissioner Miller, when you look at that, and obviously Fore County is a part of that workforce development, and other areas are too, how does the county view workforce development? What sort of things are you guys involved in that also support that, and are other areas that supplement and augment that?
We try to find the places where we're needed.
Okay.
We haven't provided any specific incentives for workforce development, where I think the county commissioners, at least the 3 of us, view is that we're more in a support role. Fore County, huge asset in our community.
Sure.
The 3 commissioners, we meet out there once a year, meet with all the senior classes. It's county government month.
Okay.
But we tell, one of the 3 of us usually tells the class that we're with that they're ready to hit the street running. They're going to be gainfully employed. They're going to be at an earning level that sometimes 4 or 5 year degree students would wish they were at.
Sure.
But they don't have the debt load. And we've seen the ability of Fore County to begin to adapt with their advisory boards, adapt to what the needs in the area are.
Now, when you see these, I mean, what kind of lead time do you get on some of these new approaches? Because obviously, you have to be ready right away when this happens. So, how do you basically predict the future in that regard? So, I know you're doing that, obviously. So, how does that work?
You know, it's like everything. They all want it yesterday. They don't want it today. They want it yesterday. a lot of that is truly leaning on our businesses, because if you want people in your community that have foresight, go to your people who are in manufacturing and business technologies, because they have that ability to look ahead, and they are tremendous at communicating with us. It's forming partnerships with the CICs and economic developments in all 4 counties, because we deal with all 4 counties. It's not just the Henry County commissioners, it's all the commissioners in the counties have been very good to us. So for us, it's just trying to find that network of communication where we can get that feedback, and then it's just a matter of how do we make it work.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that's always interesting too with a career center like that is, of course, you deal with students from that 4-county area. How do you go about recruiting students there? Because obviously you have a sales pitch. You have to say, hey, look, here's the career path. Here's the thing. And as the commissioner mentioned, you'll come out of there with the skills and a career path, and maybe not the debt that someone who might go to a 4-year school is at. So is that the pitch that's out there? Is that how you convince students that this is where you want to come?
Right, it is, and it's a balancing act, because we certainly want to present ourselves as a viable option to all juniors and seniors in the 4-county area, but we don't want to get into a sales pitch. We want to promise them something that we can't provide. So for us, what we tell them is, here are the opportunities you have. We try to lay it out. We bring them out as 8th graders, then we bring them out as sophomores again to try to expose them to that. We try to maintain very good relations with our guidance counselors of all 22 schools we serve in our area. But I think what we do, and what we've really taken on the approach, is that I don't care what you want to do as a student, whatever your niche is, 4-year college, 2-year college, 1-year specified training, military, go right into the employment area. If you come to 4 County, we offer you all those pathways to that. So for us, it's not so much a sales pitch as just being truthful with them of, we really provide an awful lot of opportunities.
Here's the array of opportunities, and you can find one that works for you.
And it's changed because, I can say this because I'm a superintendent there. 20 years ago, all career centers were the place where kids who couldn't succeed in college went. That was what it was. It's changed so vastly now, because we have an awful lot of kids who are 4.0s and valedictorians of their classes, and they're in our programs. So it's one of those things where we've evolved and become a really good educational option for any type of student. So we always tell them, if you can't find your niche at 4 County, then you don't have one.
Right. And for Henry County, that's a benefit too, because that attracts new families and keeps people here as well.
Absolutely. It sure does. And you look at, you talk to the students, you'll ask them, those seniors, well, how many's headed to the military? The hands go up. It's amazing, the number. And well, when are you leaving? 2 weeks after I graduate.
Wow.
And it's just a joy. Tim, I can remember when 4 County was built.
Yeah.
And and 4 County was not the place of choice typically. When I was in high school, kids that were in trouble, they got sent. But you can see with the quality of the type of programs they have, and then you begin talking with the students, the quality of the students they have is just wonderful.
Well, thank you. I'll give you about 15 seconds. I'll give you the last word.
I say we're just very fortunate that we have relationships with all of our county, and Denise and Denise and Glenn and Jennifer have been awesome to work with. I think one of the things I like people to hear is, when they talk about Northwest Ohio, the first thing people think of is Toledo and BG, and that's fine. But our little 4 County areas up in this corner, we're awful good at what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I say what's good there, it benefits everybody in the region. So thank you. Superintendent Tim Meister, Commissioner Glenn Miller from Henry County, thank you so much. You can check us out at WBGU.org, and of course you can watch us every week here on WBGU-TV Public Television. We will see you again next time on The Journal.